Alright, part 2, we'll go ahead and start Android Studio. And while that's starting, give a refresher. Just know that what we're doing here is very simple. There are some complex queries that you can enter into. Queries are little statements to perform to the database. And in the queries, you specify which table you want to do those queries to, depending on which query you send to it. And this right here, we selected all from tutorial table. This right here is called a cursor. And we will come back to that, and you'll see that in some of the upcoming videos. But we're going to go ahead and start Android Studio and create our layout and our database, set it up. Alright, so tutorial SQL. Hit next, just accept all the defaults. And activity, finish. But yeah, this is a really cool feature. Like, say if we want to go back to the table right here, and we want to edit the table, what we can do is click add column, address, type string, hit OK. And because we added that, it's going to ask us to commit the structure change. And whenever you do that, it pops up and shows you the entire query. So as you can see, queries can get quite long. It creates a temporary table, it drops the previous table, and it recreates the table it dropped with the new column and inserts it based off of previous data. But sometimes it's easier just to alter the table too, but that's going to be beyond the scope of these videos. I just wanted to show you that certain big queries, it will pop up and show you this. I would never click that because this is always good to read. But yeah, so now that's like that. Okay. Now that we have this right here set up, let's just go and make our layout. Alright, so we'll do our match parent wrap content, and we'll give this an ID, ET1, and we will do the same for the next one, give it ET2, but you know what, we'll make it a little bit easier to read. And then we'll add 2 buttons in. Button. We'll do this and put show 30 button. Let's see. Add the text to it. And then after that, we will put our list view in. see how this looks. Yep, just like we wanted it. And there's a list view, there's our buttons, and we're just going to go over here and find them. I'm not doing anything you haven't seen before, just getting these views and assigning them and initializing them. I don't think I gave this a ID, did I? Oop. Okay, so I'll answer that, and this right here should show it. Okay. And pretty much all we did is created the layout, and we've gotten all of the views, variable names, and then we have initialized them. Okay, so now that our layout is done for that, we will also make the layout for the custom list view items. So go to your layout, new, XML, layout file. And we're going to call this list view item. And we are just going to make this, make sure it's horizontal. I'm going to add 2 text views in here with wrap content, and I'm going to give these some IDs, and we're going to call this list view TV1, and we're going to do the same for the next one, list view TV2. Let's see how this looks. Won't know until we put some text in there. Okay, let's see what it looks like now. Trying to get them to how about we do this? We are going to give them weight, both equal. Yes, there we go. That's what we wanted. Okay, so Got the weight set to 1 and 1 each for this horizontal linear layout. And you can see that. So basically this is our list view items. Each time we add a name, it'll appear just like this: name, age, name, age, name, age in our list view item. Okay. So our layouts are done, but we won't go initialize and find these variables till we make our cursor adapter. We'll get to that later. Alright, so what we're going to do now is make our helper for our SQLite database. The only Java class we have right now is the main activity, so we're going to right click on this, go new, Java class. We're going to call this RDB helper. Press enter, extend SQLite open helper. And when you extend that class, hold Alt, hit enter, implement the methods. You're also going to be prompted to make a constructor. So you can create the constructor. And that top one's fine, context, name, string, factory. That one's fine, so hit OK. And this is our helper class. You can use it either as a utility class or just the helper class. That's what this tutorial is going to be about. So as you can see, our constructor is going to ask for a context, a name, which is going to be the database name, a cursor factory, but we usually pass a null to that, and the version of the database. Okay, so we're going to do that here. We're going to create an SQLite database, call it DB, but the DB will be nothing without the helper, so we're going to call our DB helper and name it helper. And on create, we're going to do helper equals new r DB helper, and then it should pop up the parameters. Context will be main activity.this. String name, we'll give this database the name of underscore tutorial DB name. You can name it anything you want. The next one will pass null to the cursor factory, and this will be the first version of this table. And that is going to help us out. It's going to create it. It's going to, first time this app runs, on create will call the constructor for the helper, and it will see if there's a database name, a tutorial DB name. If there is, cool. With the version code 1, it will bring it back, and that's what you'll use. If it's not there, it will create it. So for example, this tutorial DB name, this database name, with the first version of it. If it exists, if it doesn't exist, if this is the first time this app ever runs, it will create it. And when it does, it calls the onCreate method in our helper. So that's when this method is called. The onUpgrade method is for if you make a change to your version number, right? So we're going to create the first version of this database. It's going to call the onCreate method, execute whatever's in there, and then it'll just never be called. I mean, it'll just help you out, but it won't keep calling the onCreate method unless you change this to a different version. Whenever you change this to a different version, it will call onUpgrade. And on upgrade, you can call on create again if you want to. So I'll show you what I mean. So now that we have constructed our helper, we're going to do our SQLite database equals helper.get writable database. Okay, so we have constructed the layout or the framework for getting our database set up. But the thing about it is we have to create it. So do you remember this first part of the last tutorial where we created a table and it showed us this? Well, this is pretty much what we're going to do. So just to make it appear good, I'm going to do this. going to do string, create string equals, and we're going to just paste this. And we will press enter here. ID. So we're going to create a table called tutorial table. It's going to include a column called ID, which will be a type integer. It's going to be a primary key that auto increments, which means every time we enter a record into this database, this will automatically go up one number. I'm going to use a comma to separate. We're going to create a column named name. It's going to be of type string, comma to separate, and a column named age of type string. No comma, but we do close that parentheses that is right here, because that is the structure of it. No, that's not letting me go back to the original, but so that's it. And R semicolon in Java, as you can see. So remember, you got to have a semicolon in SQLite as well as Java. And so it will, let's do this. We're going to take this SQLite database right here, dot execute SQL. We're going to execute this create string. Now this is why I was saying it's very important to learn the fundamentals of SQLite first. All of this right here, this create table and insert and stuff, because if you create a string, you create the query, and then you can execute that query on the database by calling execute SQL. There's a couple other methods too, but this is the absolute simplest way. Okay, so that's what's going to happen. We are going to open this app for the first time, and when we do, it's going to construct our helper. It's going to check to see if we have a database called tutorial database name version 1. If it does, it's going to grab it and give it to the database and say, here's your database. But if not, it will create it and then give it to the database. So that's all you have to do, and that is how we set up our database. Just so you can see it in action, we're going to create a log real quick. So we are going to do log.I. We're going to do tutorial info, and we are going to say onCreate has been called. And so what's going to happen is, watch this. We are going to put on update has been called. We are also going to put right here so what's going to happen is we're going to start this app. It's going to tell us, hey, tutorial info, it's building the database, and it will do this, the constructor, and then you'll see how it's going to call onCreate has been called. So we'll go ahead and run that. Pull up the logcat, go to my info, go to here, crap. There we go. All right. Let's see what happens. a while. Integrated builds. Alright, now it's about to start up. So you can see it says building DB. This is our log. So basically, it started the main activity. It says it's building the DB, and then it does this line, which the constructor, as you build it, it's going to go here and construct, and onCreate has been called. So that's the flow of the events right there. We're going to make this a little bit more safer. Create table if not exists. Okay, that right there will cause SQLite to not give you any fuss. If it's there, cool. If not, well, it'll create it, which could lead to some errors down the road. So always use create table if not exists. Alright, so watch this. OnUpdate has been called. When will that be called? Whenever you change the version number. So we're going to change it real quick just to give you an idea. And it's opening. OnUpdate has been called. See? It didn't even call onCreate because we changed the version number. The version number only calls the onUpgrade method. But watch this. We could do it's right here on create. We're going to send the database back to it. And now we'll go back to our main activity. And now we'll increase the version number one more time. And we'll press play. And what this is going to do is, since we increase the version number again, it will call the onUpgrade method. The onUpgrade method is going to log and say, hey, onUpdate's been called. I'm sorry, yeah, onUpgrade, upgrade, update. I meant to put that as a upgrade. Anyways, it shows you onUpdate has been called, which is here. And then we called onCreate from the onUpdate. So this is just a very simple way how you can navigate and use the helper to, you know, create your tables how you want to. If 6 months down the road I want to come and add some columns to this, I can come down here on my onUpgrade method and alter the table and increase the version number, and it'll alter the table however I want to. But that's beyond the scope of this little tutorial. But it's real powerful, SQLite and Android Studio, but it's very simple. So that's kind of why I wanted to make this tutorial, to show you that it's a lot simpler than all the tutorials online that make it seem. Don't get me wrong, this can be very complex, and like you can have tables communicate with other tables and all that, but to get a simple understanding is kind of why I'm making this video. But we'll continue this next couple of videos. We'll continue off of, you know, we created our database. Next one, we will insert data into the database.